Hello students. In this video, I'm going to talk about the life's journey. If you think about your life as a journey, you can imagine it as moving through different stages with some difficulties, but always moving onwards towards some vision in the future. You can say this is a bit like all of those action movies and those movies that you see where the hero is having difficulties. They have one difficulty, then another, then they have to fight somebody, then they have to go through a difficult situation. But eventually the hero gets to what the main goal is, if you could like. And this is kind of what we need to think of ourselves, that our lives are a bit like a journey, a hero's journey. And of course, it's going to have hesitations, self-doubts, and it's going to have resistances. It's going to have difficulties at certain times. There's going to be hope and optimism, but also disappointment. Life is not life unless it has challenges and struggles. And you know, in these movies where the hero has these villains that they have to fight, but the villains that we fight are mostly inside us. So our goal in life is to become a better person, to really expand and develop our life, to find people to love, and to discover a purpose, and to do that and to fulfill it to the best of our ability. I've had many struggles in my own life, and I've talked a little bit about it in other videos. Until I was about 21, 22, I thought of my life as very difficult, and I felt sorry for myself, and I had periods where I was unhappy. When I got into my 20s and I started to really focus on what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And where is my life going to go? Then things began to open up and became much easier. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you need to think about these questions. Where are you in your life journey? Well, we know that you're in your 20s, 18 to 20, somewhere there. And we know that you've had some successes and you've had some struggles. But you need to think, so where am I? Where am I in this whole period of my life from the beginning to the end? And hopefully the end is very, very far in the future. And then you need to think to yourself, where do I see myself in 5 years' time? What is my life going to be like? Who am I going to be with? What am I going to be doing? So you want to have what I call a vision for the future. And this vision can draw you onwards and can really help you stay on track. So you know that you need to have this future vision because it's very important so that you don't wander around in your life and do things which are really unnecessary or really off track. What's important is to have a positive view of the future, of your own future. So you need to think, so what's my best view of the future? What's my worst view of the future? And which one am I going to choose? Am I going to choose the positive view, or am I going to let myself slip into really what I think is not going to be good for me? And the next thing we're going to talk about, how might I get to achieving this vision, achieving the goals of my life, having a life that's really good for me, doing those things which fulfill me, make me feel satisfied, having loving relationships, and having a sense that as you move through your life, you are doing the best you can, moving in the right direction. So I'm going to offer you some ideas that you might think about, you might ponder, and of course you can always view this video a number of times, but we're going to talk about your life as a journey and how you can become the person you want to be. I've talked about these important things in different ways a number of times. Love and relationships are very, very important. Work and purpose are really just as important. And then a good attitude to your life, a good orientation towards what's happening to you is always going to help you move forward in the best way possible. So let me look at love and relationships. So these are the things you need to focus on. You want to find a loving partner, and that might take you a few tries. It has to be somebody you can trust and somebody you can live with for the whole of your life, if at all possible. You want to find friends who care about you and who are there when you need them. And not just friends who are there now and then, but really friends who care. You also want to have an okay relationship with your wider family. This cannot always be possible, but you need to do the best you can with that because it's important to stay connected to our ancestors and to our lineage and how all of those things have been passed down from our grandparents, our great grandparents, and on and on. And those things, as you get older, become more and more important. But as I say, it's not always possible to have a good relationship with your parents or with your wider family because they may not think the way you do, and they may want you to do things which are not in tune with your inner nature. And finally, you need to become more loving. That is a practice. It's not about loving somebody, it's about becoming more loving. That means sharing with somebody, showing up, being affectionate, caring. And it also means growing with that other person so that your relationship doesn't stagnate, it doesn't stay the same. It gets better and better as you live together. And of course, that means that you need to be able to express your love to those around you in a very appropriate way and a way which people can receive. So next I'll talk about work and purpose. At this time of your life, maybe you don't need to work immediately, maybe you're going into higher education, but eventually you're going to find regular work that provides financial stability. It's important to be stable in your finances if at all possible. Often we go through periods where we have more money or we have less money. I've been quite poor for most of my life until really towards the latter part of my life, I actually began to make more money. But I've been very stable and I've been very relaxed around money. I've known that it's always going to come to me when I need it. You need to live within your means. What does that mean? It means you don't overspend. You don't do things which are impulsive. You don't buy stuff just because it's there. You don't give in to advertisements. You look at your money, you look at what you need to live on, and you need to save if at all possible, because that means things get more secure as you get older. You need to do work that is in tune with your inner nature and talents as much as possible. Now, I had to go through doing all sorts of jobs which I felt I didn't really enjoy for quite a long period of time before I decided to become a psychologist. And some of you ask, like, what other work might I do? And the answer is nothing. This work that I do suits my inner nature and my talents almost perfectly. And my wife has a similar situation. She is an osteopath, a healer, so she works with people's bodies. And it really is her talent. She's so good at it. And she feels very satisfied with that work. So those are key things that tell you that your work is really in tune with your inner nature and talents. You feel satisfied. You feel challenged. You keep growing. And the last thing is to discover your purpose in life. And that's often to do with your inner nature and talents. So my purpose in life is to be a psychotherapist, is to help people, is to provide a service for people so they can become stable in themselves, more aware of themselves, have better lives, less suffering. Your purpose may be completely different. And of course, that purpose does include often having children and providing for that family in whatever way you can. You don't always have to be discovering a purpose that makes money. Sometimes you're an artist or a dancer, or sometimes you're a musician. Now, these are your purpose in life, but they're hard to make money at. So you may have to do other work that provides the financial stability. And remember, it has to be in tune with who you are and not listen to what people think you should do. So the last thing is a good attitude to life. What does that mean? Well, I'm dividing that into three aspects: a right attitude, a right intention, and a right action. So right attitude is believing in yourself, knowing that you are good enough and that you can do what you need with your life and that you will always persevere and move forward. Listening to your inner guidance, that means listening to your inner self, getting quiet, not just being pulled around by thoughts and emotions, but trying to get to a place inside of certainty. And that's not easy. So that takes some practice. When you can do that, your attitude will tend to be much more even and not pulled around by outside forces. Right intention is focusing on what you want to achieve. Where am I going? What do I want to achieve? How am I going to get there? So that requires that you be disciplined and that you have a plan, that you have some idea of what you should do next. It doesn't have to be a grand plan, but it has to be something which helps you make the decision to do whatever you need to do next. And the last intention is what I call balancing effort and letting go. We have to make an effort in this life. We have to try to move forward. But at the same time, we have to have an inner attitude, an inner intention to surrender or to let go or to allow our life or our spirituality to move us forward. So we're always balancing effort. I need to do this and I need to let go. I need to surrender. I need to just let whatever happens happen. The last thing is right actions. This is simply do what you need to do it at the right time. That's not always easy to know. And as I said, you can't always rely on your thinking or on your feelings to guide you into right actions. So quiet inside really helps. If, for instance, your room needs to be tidied up, you do it. And you do it at the right time. You don't do it because you have to do it and you force yourself. And you don't let it go on and on and on till it gets more and more messy. You try to find a good balance, not too soon, not too late. A lot of people have a kind of obsessive need to do things immediately. They feel driven, and that can actually work against you because it's harder to do things when it's not the right time. But a lot of people have the opposite, which is they procrastinate. What that means is that they don't do things at the right time. They let things lapse. It goes on, and then it gets harder and harder for them to face it. And so you're wanting to not push, but not let go too much and really keep a balance. And that's the way in which our actions really achieve what we want them to achieve. So I'm going to have a kind of a number of things to remember. Basically the same things I've just said, but I'll say them in a different way. So the first thing, believe in yourself, and you will be guided to find what you need in life if you listen to your inner feelings. You need a strong faith in the goodness and the meaning of your life, that your life is important, that it has a reason. And you need to believe that the universe is on your side. And that means that you might think about God or you might think about religion in a particular way, but you know that things are not against you, that they're really trying to help you. Things will unfold in the way they need to if you have the right attitude and if you approach things in the right way. And that includes taking time to be quiet and reflect on who you are, what you need in the moment, what you should do right now. What should I do today? What is the most important thing for me to focus on today? The last thing on this page is accept that everything you experience has meaning and value. That's often very difficult when we're having a difficult time. We want to get rid of suffering and we want to have things which actually we enjoy. But sometimes suffering, challenges are exactly what need to happen. They have value for us. They make us stronger, or they make us think about things in a certain way. The sense that this is what I need to go through in order to get to the other side where things will be better. Find a partner and friend who shares your positive views on life. I've said this many times. Don't hang out with people who you really don't feel are good for you, or actually have a negative view of things, or are very critical, who really don't look at life as though it's going to be good for them. Don't give up easily when things are difficult in a relationship. Say you're with a partner, say you've found somebody you really love, and there will be a time always in every single relationship where things will get difficult, where you will fight, where there'll be conflicts and disagreements. And a lot of people just give up and maybe they go looking for another relationship. And that is actually not going to help you because you will do exactly the same thing in the next relationship as you did in this one. So what you want to work with the relationship to find what's going to be the best thing for both of you. And that has to be balanced. It has to be equal. You can't just make up your mind to do certain things once you're in a relationship. Work with your partner. But there's another side to that, which is you have to know when to stay with the relationship or when to let go of it. That's particularly true of friends. Friends will often not work for you as you get older. They won't think about things in the same way. You maybe even have childhood friends who you feel very close to, who you've shared a lot with, but as you get older, you may just grow apart. And so you might have to just let go of that relationship very naturally. Or maybe you just let it go for a certain period of time and then you reconnect later. When you're in a marriage or a partnership, you have to know, when should we separate and when should we stay together? Well, I've talked about that a little bit. If there's abuse, if there's criticism, if there's judgment, if there's unfaithfulness, well, maybe that is a time to question whether this relationship is ever going to work. You need to think, okay, what are the signs that this is going to get better? And if they aren't there, then maybe I do need to get out. The last thing I'm going to say on this page is, don't measure yourself against others' lives. Jealousy, envy, looking at other people, comparing yourself, those are not going to help you. You only want to measure yourself against your own values. Am I getting better? Am I moving forward? Am I doing the things which I know are right for me? I don't need to look at all of those people because they have their own lives. They're different from me. They may or may not be happy. Often I think they're happy, and I can tell you they're often not, because as I say, I've worked with many people who have everything they need in life, and they are the most unhappy people I've ever met. So don't measure yourself against others' lives, just against who you are. You need to have a clear vision of what you want from life. Well, it's kind of like looking at a mountain in the distance and saying, I'm going to get to the top of that mountain. I have a vision of what it's like to be there. And I don't know exactly how to get there, but I'm going to head in the right direction. So your vision might be that I want to become a lawyer, for instance. Okay, so then you have that vision. You don't know exactly how you're going to achieve it, but you know there's certain steps that you're going to have to take. I had a vision, a clear vision, that I wanted to become a psychologist, and I had to do so many steps to actually get there. But because I knew what I wanted, it kind of pulled me forward through the difficult times, and I didn't give up hope, and I didn't let go. I knew I would get there. So that's what a vision is. It pulls you towards something good in the future. And in order to get there, you need to make good decisions. Those decisions that take you in the right direction. So say you want to become a doctor, then you would take all those decisions which move you towards becoming a doctor. That means education and all the rest of those, finding the money to actually finance your education. You might be required to take a job that gives you enough stability financially to pay for your education. That's still in the right direction. But what if you take a job and then you give up on your vision, and before you know it, you're just working in an office and you wonder to yourself, oh, I always wanted to be a doctor. It was just not possible. I kind of had to give up on that. That's being led astray. Or you have friends or family who said to you, no, you can't do that. You should do this. You should join the family business because we need you to do that. But that's not necessarily in tune with your nature or your talents. Make good decisions that take you in the right direction. And that requires that you be determined, that you work hard. And this is a key element. Be reliable. Nobody wants to employ somebody who's not reliable. It's in some sense the most important part. An employer will often give you the benefit of the doubt if you're not actually knowing how to do things. As long as you turn up, as long as you're there, as long as they can rely on you. Being reliable is probably the best thing you can possibly do in your work life. And finally, learn the lessons that life brings and put them into practice. Seeing that each thing that happens to you is, in some sense, a lesson. It's going to teach you something. And what it teaches you is going to be important. And if you learn those lessons, put them into practice, you won't make the same mistakes in the future. And you won't find yourself in the same situations. So I hope some of these are going to be helpful for you. And I wish you the greatest luck and blessings for your life in the future.